This is Valmiki Ramayana, Season 7, Episode 8, First Day of the War. The Vanar army had encircled Lanka. Valmiki says, the city, which was naturally surrounded by hills and forests, was now also surrounded by a sea of Vanaras. They inched closer and closer. And then Ram gave the order to attack. The Rakshasas had prepared for this assault, but the sheer force and speed of the attack took them by surprise. The Vanaras quickly filled up the moat around the capital with rocks, logs of wood, grass, and mud. After building a setu across the ocean in a similar manner, this was hardly an obstacle for them. And then they struck at the gates of Lanka. The gates came crashing down. The Vanaras also broke through the defenses on the boundary wall and climbed onto it. They roared, Jayatyurbalo Ramah, Lakshmanascha Mahabalah, Raja Jayati Sugriva. Victory to the mighty Ram! Victory to Lakshman! Victory to King Sugriv! Ravan was furious when he saw all this and ordered his forces to counterattack. The sounds of 1,000 shankars, conches rose in the air. The Rakshasas laid into the Vanaras with all their fury. They came riding their horses, elephants, and chariots. They attacked with arrows, spears, maces, and axes. On the other hand, the Vanaras attacked with whatever they could get their hands on. Soon, it was a man-to-man fight between the Rakshasas and the Vanaras. A Dvandva Yuddha. Rakshasam Vanaranam cha Dvandva Yuddham avartata. And fighting at close quarters played to the Vanaras' advantage. Jambumali charged at Hanuman with his chariot and struck him on his chest. But Hanuman quickly recovered, jumped onto the chariot, and struck the enemy with his bare hands. The blows were so powerful that Jambumali soon lay dead. Meanwhile, Sugriv noticed that the Rakshas Praghas was causing significant losses among the Vanaras. Sugriv struck him with a large tree trunk and killed him instantly. The Rakshas Nikumbh struck Neel with many a deadly arrow and laughed at the injured Vanar's plight. Bibheda samare Neelam Nikumbha Prajahasacha. But Neel pulled out the wheel of Nikumbh's chariot, struck the Rakshas with it, and beheaded him. Lakshman got the better of Virupaksha, and Ram finished off 4 Rakshas leaders who had launched a coordinated attack on him. Soon, the battlefield was littered with dead bodies. All around were rivers of blood. Prasusruhu Shonitapagaha. Hours went by. The day came to a close, but the fighting continued. In the dark chaos of the battle, it was difficult to see who was from which side. But neither the Vanaras nor the Rakshasas wanted to retreat for the night. The sound that emerged from the battlefield was a ghastly mix of the beating of drums, the blast of conches, the rattle of chariot wheels, and the terrible groans of the injured soldiers, Vanaras and Rakshasas. The Rakshasas had another go at Ram. Mahaparshva, Mahodar, Shuk, Saran, and others jointly attacked Ram. But Ram's swift counterattack forced them to beat a hasty retreat. Angad then took on Indrajit. He killed Indrajit's charioteer and destroyed his chariot, forcing the mighty Rakshas to retreat. This was a big win for the Vanaras. Everyone applauded Angad for prevailing over Indrajit. But the tide was about to turn. Indrajit was far from done. He was a master at creating illusions, Maya. He made himself invisible, Adrishya. And he started raining down arrows on Ram and Lakshman.
How did Indrajit make himself invisible?
Most likely, Indrajit fired off weapons in such a manner that the enemy could not figure out where he was firing them from. For example, by causing them to swing in the air and change course. Indrajit's arrows were laced with poison, and they paralyzed Ram and Lakshman. The two brothers could barely move their hands and legs, as though they were bound by ropes. Hanuman and Angad tried to help, but they could not figure out where Indrajit was hiding. Indrajit continued his attacks on Ram and Lakshman, who were powerless to fend off the arrows. Soon they were bleeding heavily. Tayoh kshatajamārgena susrāva rudhiram bahu. Indrajit roared, "Now I will send the two of you to meet the Lord of Death." And he fired off yet another volley of arrows at them. Finally, drenched in blood, every part of their body covered with terrible wounds, Ram and Lakshman collapsed on the ground, unconscious. The Vanaras rushed towards their fallen leaders. Indrajit struck them as well. Neel, Jambavan, Hanuman, and others. And then, Nishpandau tu tada drishtva bhratarau Rama Lakshmanau vasudhayam niruchhvasau hataviti anvamanyata. Indrajit saw Ram and Lakshman lying motionless on the ground and assumed they were dead. And he victoriously went back inside the city. Sugriv also thought that this was the end for Ram and Lakshman. His eyes welled up with tears. But Vibhishan told him, "Don't worry. They are only unconscious. I'm sure they will revive soon. You stay here and protect them. I will go around our camp and ensure that the troops do not lose heart when they hear that Ram is injured." Meanwhile, Indrajit reported to Ravan that he had killed Ram and Lakshman. Utpapata tatorhishtah putram cha parishasvaje. Ravan jumped up in delight and hugged his son. Ram was dead. Sita would now lose all hope and say yes to him. Or so he thought. Iti ha asa. That is how it happened.